Ladies and gentlemen, from the depths of Stony Island, we present to you What Had Happened Was Season 4. What Happened Was Season 4. Fantastic like Secret Wars. Questlove with the stories got him leaning forward. I'm going to publish a book consisting of just the emails it took to make this happen. It'll be a very, very thick book.
Yo, man, one thing that I'll say is the secret to our success is that, we all made sort of a collective promise to be janky free.
Janky free.
But I will say that, that we're 98% of the time very efficient. I will say, though, because of my hyperbolic reputation slash kind of little boy that cried wolf reputation. Like, if I come running in the room with like really, really excited, like, guys, we gotta do this thing. You can almost hear like the voice in their head, like eye roll, like, all right, I mean, what is it? This so-called podcast that you fell in love with, like, So in my world, I already have like 16 tasks to do.
Yeah.
So
yeah, of course.
a lot of people in my circle, their main job is like all of them are overqualified to solve Rubik's Cube kind of puzzles in record time. So sometimes the ball gets quasi dropped, but it's not like we're just like, no, we don't care.
Well, I mean, I couldn't imagine more of a busy situation.
Man, look, I'm here because to be honest, I don't want to like embarrass you, whatever. Like, but this
please try
this. Nah, man, like this podcast saved my life. I'll say like 3 podcasts, like really, like during the pandemic. Probably the thing that I did the most. Well, one, I quarantined up in a farm that was about maybe. Okay, so that was during the period in which, maybe for a good 4 months, it was like the Wild Wild West, and there were no police presence whatsoever. So
this is on the where you were.
Yeah, where I was.
Yeah.
So, I could drive 100 miles per hour with no sweat whatsoever, like isolated, like it's the opening scene of Vanilla Sky, to work to the Tonight Show and back to the farm I was at in maybe like 45 minutes. But in normal times, that drive would have taken like an hour and 20 minutes. So it's just saying that, three podcasts like held me down, and yours was definitely number one, just like for a taste of normalcy.
Yeah, you worked. I'm very embarrassed. Thank you. Great work. I'm over the moon to have you here, one of my pie in the sky guests, because there's not a lot of people really qualified to do the kind of deep dives we do with that level of catalog. And then just for me personally, I have to be that into the work,
right?
for it to
really work.
Yeah.
If anything, I would have thought that I would have done a disservice to the show, because I almost feel like there was a point where it was like 2 available.
Really?
There was a point where
this is like 1994 or
something? No. There was a point where my 3rd year at the Tonight Show, and this is probably like the last year. Okay, so I'll say the Tonight Show now for just technical sake for your audience, but what I refer to what I do on weekdays is I'm a student at 30 Rock University. And that is probably, and you being a comedy head, that building is probably one of the most educational buildings of all time, because what you have is it's like a stratosphere, and you have different galaxies, and the Seth floor is different than the SNL floor,
right,
which is different than the Today Show floor and the Tonight Show floor and the local news, and like on the 3rd floor where MSNBC is. And literally, this being like my 14th, 15th year there, it's everything I ever learned in my professional life in the last 14 years will probably last me to the age of 70. But the thing is that Oh, also, fair warning, I'm gonna rabbit hole the shit out of this
I love
podcast.
it. I love
So,
it.
midway in my head, I'm like, "Wait, what was the point I was trying to make?" But
I know it's something you were saying you were too available.
right, well, so the thing was in the 3rd year of being there, and this is, like, also the last year that the Lonely Island guys were gonna be at SNL,
Mhm.
like Andy Samberg and all those dudes, and Samberg catches me in the hallway once, and he's like he just said it as a matter of fact, he's like, "Yo, Amir, like, it's a cliche to always get you in a documentary to talk about stuff," and, yeah, I was like, "Yeah, yeah," he's like he was trying to pitch me on being a talking head for that movie that they did, like that
Yeah,
mockumentary.
pop star.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
pop star film, and, I walked away for a second, and I sat my "Wait, what'd he say?" And I ran out I was like, "Yo, what's he say?" He's like, "Yeah, like, you're always in documentaries and stuff." And I was like, "Yo, I'm like a cliche now?" Like, it's like
Oh,
eye roll city when you see Questlove give commentary on a story. He's like, "Well, yeah, every time I turn around, it's like, there you are, there you are." So, I was like, "Oh, man, I gotta cut back and stop being available because 'Cause I'm almost
mm,
certain between, like, all those mammoth posts I used to do on OK Player
right.
and
The
my Twitter
stories, yeah.
account and the way that my Instagram account is some person's obituary
Mm.
spot and all that, like, I'm almost certain that there's a Pitchfork writer just, like, waiting to waiting to roast me. Like, that sort of I don't wanna be like like in someone's sights for a Target takedown, so,
I hear that, but,
yeah.
not to worry, but I'm gonna have to pull us out of the rabbit hole from time to time because
That's
I
gonna be your
I
job,
do
to
wanna
just
make
stay focused
sure yeah,
because we don't want this to be a 5-hour.
I mean, we do, we just don't have 5 hours is the
Right,
problem.
exactly,
Um,
exactly.
but, I do wanna start at the beginning. I kinda went back and forth a lot on whether or not I was gonna cover organics.
Mhm.
Um, I didn't hear it when it came out, of course. I mean, I imagine a lot of people didn't. I
I didn't
mean,
hear it when it came
you
out.
go
Right.
it came to me, quite a few years later, and I
Mhm.
went back to it, and I loved it. But I think just in terms of the story of the roots, we kinda have to start
You have to
there.
get the beginning of
Yeah,
the
we gotta
roots.
begin at the beginning, but I
Right.
think even before that, um, I mean, a little bit of background on you, I think, would be good. Um
Alright, I'm gonna see, now I'm in my head because 'cause I'm like, "Oh god, everyone's heard this story before." So, I'll give you the most succinct version of how I got to performing arts high school, and
Mhm.
the real reason why I insisted that you do the roots separate
Right.
is because, Tariq and I'm more sentimental with stories in detail,
Uh-huh.
um, but he also has stuff he remembers, and I'm not saying, like, it's the Equimini thing, I guess we're uh, a Libra or Librarius or whatever,
Mhm.
like, his account of things are way different than my account of
So
things.
just to put the whole picture together, we get
Right.
both sides.
He'll almost guarantee you, like, he will counter, like, "There's Amir
You know,
exaggerating
making up
again."
shit again.
Right, exactly. So, um, so basically what I will say is that, I was born to, an oldies doo-wop singer
Right.
who was just getting his second wind, in the '70s in terms of, the way that, the rock and roll culture is like the first national culture started in the '50s, and then, as you know, with all music, like, I'm sure now today, like, there's some 40-year-old waiting for the Spice Girls to reunite, whatever's hitting 20, 25 years ago is what's happening now. So, as far as nostalgia culture is concerned. So, um, my dad, having sort of retired from doo-wop music, he entered the game in, like, 1955 and sort of waned off by 19, like, 65, I think. And by that time, he had met my mother, who was, like, a print model from Pittsburgh, and they decided to open up a fashion boutique,
Mm.
in West Philadelphia. And, as with most of America, once, King was assassinated, there was riots all over, and pretty much the response was, like, all the inner cities burnt down.
Right.
So, um, a lot of the dilapidated, abandoned sort of what we view as the ghetto
Hmm.
was a result of just buildings burning out of anger,
Right.
and you pretty much have to start anew. So um, they kind of got out of, well, part of it was white flight, and another part of it was just, the neighborhood wasn't the neighborhood anymore after King was assassinated. And my father's manager, I believe, a gentleman named um, Larry Maggot, who basically, he was Ticketron, and he invented, uh, he would later, in a succession way, get coup d'état out of Ticketron,
Hmm.
and his underlings started what we now know as like Live Nation.
Hmm.
So, but he was my dad's manager back then. So he was trying to figure out ways, normal things we do now, like, hey, you could play colleges,
Right.
or there's this thing called nostalgia culture where people who are 30 now want to hear music back when they were 15. So suddenly these shows started happening where you would get my dad and Harvey and the Moonglows and Jackie Wilson
Hmm.
and, like groups of the 50s, Chuck Berry and whatnot, and do these package tours
Right.
or do these one spot dates at Madison Square Garden or the Spectrum in Philly and that sort of thing. Um, so that was enough to sustain my father probably from like 68 till maybe 74. And that was a very short, because by 74, disco culture
Right.
starts. And the nostalgia for the second wave, which was like the British invasion,
Hmm.
whatever was happening in the early 60s, you only get like 5 years to cash in on your notoriety.
Right.
Like, so as a result, my dad saw the future coming. In order to sustain a living, he decided to get off of the oldie circuit and start the nightclub circuit. And
Mm.
in the nightclub circuit, it's pretty much, I'll say, what we now know is like when you see wedding bands and whatnot.
Yeah.
So my dad, having the four relatively known hits and ballads from his era, was able to turn, like, those four pieces of oxtail meats into like a big giant pot of soup, like, with a lot of vegetables, a lot of broth, and my four hits.
Right.
And he kind of came with a package. The package was basically like he would do these nightclub gigs, required to do 5 shows a night, which was very typical. Like, the band he hires has to know the songs of the day,
Hmm.
so they're the DJ. Um, Whatever, Ohio Players, Earth, Wind, and Fire, like Casey and Sunshine, whatever's popping at the time. So those are called dance sets. So
Gotcha.
like set number one is more like a quiet dinner, play This Masquerade by George Benson, like
Hmm.
that sort of thing. And then my dad's show was 45 minutes. And by that time, it's my mother, my father, and my aunt Karen as the main show. And then they take a break. The band does another half hour dance music. That's the way I like it, or,
Hmm.
that sort of thing. And then the second show of my parents happens. And then that's done around like 1 in the morning. And then the band does one more dance set. And the club closes at 2 in the morning or
Now,
three.
now this was one club, or this toured in a circuit?
Uh, so the way that territories work is we lived in Philadelphia.
Uh-huh.
So up in the Catskills, there's a lot of, like, think of like Dirty Dancing.
Right.
Like, it's like, was that like an adult summer camp or something like that? So there would be at least 16 of those in the Catskills, and they're always needing entertainment
Right.
on any given night.
Right.
So they might hire my dad for a week,
Right.
give him
Do a
hotel money,
residency, yeah.
right? And then there's also the Poconos, where, because some states are trying to like make gambling legal.
Mhm.
So
So you
in
need
the
entertainment.
right, so it's, like the tri-state, New England, the Poconos, they always have those little like one-off Caesars, blah blah blah, where you can gamble, or you're from Illinois, so they did those on boats,
River
right?
boats, yeah.
Right. So same thing. Like wherever there's gambling and river boats, there needs to be alcohol and some sort of
Some
entertainment.
entertainment, right.
Right. And then Atlantic City, uh, some spots in Puerto Rico, Miami, occasionally Vegas. So that was enough. That little just spotted sections, and occasionally it'll be some weird things like we did like 2 weeks in Muncie, Indiana, or like in Bismarck, North
Now
Dakota.
you saying we at this point. How old are you?
So here's the deal. What makes me different than the average kid around that time is I'm the last generation whose parents didn't believe in babysitting.
Right.
Like the idea of a stranger coming in my house to watch my kid, no. Like, so just think of it like farm work. The
Mhm.
reason why Jackson-sized families existed between like the 30s and the 60s was, okay, I got to make a lot of kids so they can help me on the farm.
Right.
So even though I have 5 siblings because my dad is a singer, but between my mother and my father, it's me and my sister Dawn.
Mhm.
And so basically, we had to be somehow like part of the act. Now, I know you're asking, like, so are you in these nightclubs? The idea of scandal culture, like the idea of like, you're underage and show me your ID. None of that scandal culture really didn't exist until like the late 80s,
Mm.
once like scandals started happening with like preachers and whatnot, but people were pretty much looking the other way. So
Right.
the idea of a 5-year-old, now when I was 5, they wanted me on stage with them so they can keep an eye on me. But of
Right.
course, like I just can't stand there. So
In a little suit.
right. But I'm playing tambourine. I had a toy saxophone, and he had a large band. So think of those like 70 soul bands where people are doing
You're doing the
I'm
dance
doing the
moves,
dance
yeah.
routines,
Okay.
and people just thought like I can't say the M word, a short person. All right. So me in the horn section, like I just be in the horn section, like doing all this stuff or whatever, but
Mhm.
I'm like humming into a kazoo, not playing saxophone. That was like from 5. And I mean, I also joke that I was the family GPS
Hmm.
because it was also like, hey, can you tell me how to get to da 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 lane and whatever? And I write it down. Dad taught me how to read a Rand McNally map.
Wow.
So by the time I was 7, he gave me more responsibility, and I was responsible for like shining his shoes, uh, cleaning his suede, whisk brooming. Okay, this is how you steam. Like we're in hotels, so there
Right.
might not be an ironing board. So run the shower and steam my suits. Your mom's dresses to the cleaners. So 7, I was on like wardrobe duty and packing duty. So I'm the shit in Tetris. So, and then when I was 9, my sister used to operate the spotlight in the nightclub.
Mhm.
She got upgraded to being in the band once my aunt got married and left the group. So my sister then became part of the group.
And what did she play?
My sister is a singer-songwriter.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, she's currently right now like at Naris in the Grammy world,
Okay.
that sort of thing. But that left the job of being tour manager or production manager to me.
Hmm.
So yeah, as a 10-year-old, it was very normal for a 10, and I always joke that, at the Tonight Show, I don't even trust uh a 23-year-old college educated intern to take my lunch order.
Hmm.
Yet I'm a 10-year-old coming into a nightclub and seriously ask like, okay, I need a ladder, I need a razor blade. Okay, so we can't do purple and green because dad says that looks bad on black
Mhm.
skin. So I need give me a razor blade and then show me your light gels. So I had to cut light gels and put peach and yellow in the light things
Yeah.
and mark the floor. I had to ring out the monitors, make sure the band sound checks. I mean, that was watching the band was like my dad's thing.
Right.
But like I would also like lose my mind if one of them plays the song wrong or whatever. Like
Right.
that part of me was early. So I was like on light duty from 9 to 10. And also incidentally, like one of the richest fourth graders ever. So
Okay. All right. Weird flex.
no, well, this is people are like, how do you get your record collection? Like literally, like I think by 1980, I was making like maybe $300 a week for 1980. Of
Yeah.
course, like you're saving for college or whatever, but no, I was buying records. And then the real jump in the pool was at Radio City Music Hall. My dad's drummer got in a motorcycle accident, and he just looked at me like, all right, well, you're the drummer now and the band leader.
Whoa.
And so I got whisked off to Macy's on 34th Street to get a suit. And at the age of 12 at Radio City Music Hall in front of 7,000 people,
Craziness.
I led the entire band for my dad's show. And he was elated because it's like, yo, I don't have to pay someone $850 a week. I could just give him like $300 and, so he's saving $700 and I know the show and I'm the drummer and I can help on background. So he's like saving instant, he's saving $1,000, instantly. And I basically remained my dad's band leader. Like I started at Radio City Music Hall, and the night before we exiled to Europe as the Roots. My last gig was at Madison Square Garden.
Wow.
And so, as far as my schooling's concerned, I pretty much, I traveled with them. Most of these gigs were sort of local, Atlantic City and that sort of thing. So, after school, just drive there, an hour and a half, that sort of thing. Come home at 1 in the morning, 2 in the morning, get up for school. Same stories like the Jackson 5, that sort of thing. But then sometimes they would have to go to Miami for like 3 weeks. So I'd have to stay at my grandmom's house and they would get another drummer and that sort of thing. So I went to performing arts school for the first 6 years of my life, first through sixth grade. And then something happens in the early 80s, which is like, I haven't never watched the speech, but whatever like Reagan's America was, like his version of Make America Great Again, for all those hippies that lived through the hedonistic 70s, they're now turning 40 and a lot of guilt has set in. And suddenly there was a massive wave of like Christianity and conservatism, and especially with black people, like, because Reagan, the GOP party, like, tells you stuff and, oh, yeah, I believe it.
Right.
Not so much now, but back then.
They used to have the moral.
Oh, you brought it. Yeah, you brought the whole moral, like, this is wrong, this is this, and that sort of thing. So they took me out of performing arts school and put me more in like a Christian school that was sort of like, well, you're from Illinois. So do you know who Marva Collins is? Okay, so she was a school teacher in one of the worst schools in Chicago. And like the kids were from like the dregs of society and Cabrini Green, whatever. And she single-handedly said, I'm gonna get all these kids into like Ivy League schools.
Okay.
And she did it. If you have Stevie Wonder's Songs in the Key of Life record, when you hear Black Man, those kids doing back and forth, that's her class.
Okay, wow.
They did like a biopic on her. Anyway, so like she was like turning those kids into like smart kind of Ivy League school students. And so that's the kind of school I went to. But what they didn't have was like music programs and that sort of thing. So by 11th and 12th grade, I begged my parents, like, yo, like for the first time, can I like try public school? Because before then I went to like private schools. So their whole thing was like, you got to get into the best schools and get in the best college and da-da-da. And I never had a normal childhood where I socialized with kids my age. I always grew up with adults. I was the youngest in the room, always in a nightclub, that sort of thing. And I never knew there were kids that knew how to play music like I did. Like I thought I was an anomaly, like a one of one. Like, oh, I'm the cute kid that plays like an adult.
Right.
And when I found out, wait, there's a performing arts school in which kids are like almost better, I wanted to go there. So through the skin of my teeth, I got in the school. And this is where the story differentiates between Tariq and I.
Yeah.
The way that I remember it, so that entire experience was literally like a fish out of water thing. Like I'm doing all the things that one shouldn't do, like when you see like a New York tourist, that sort of thing, like
just looking around wide-eyed.
Right. Like, hey guys. And I never went to school like more than my typical schools were like 80 students. The school I came from was like 23 students. So it's like, wow, we're in the thousands. And literally, it was like that moment in the beginning of Clueless where like you see over there, okay, all the choir kids are like singing over there, and then all the dancers are doing like Broadway stuff, and they're like breaking out in the song and harmonizing. And what we would know as boys to men are like in the
Like
bathroom.
literally Boys to Men,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, me and Tariq were like the least, like every Cosby Show extra. The guy I say, hey man,
Hey,
like
man.
he was there. Not Pam, but what's her name from the Cosby Show? Ooh, Lance.
Oh, I know who you.
Like
I know
they
the actress you're talking about. Yeah.
every jazz god, who's the god now, like Christian McBride, Joey DeFrancesco, rest in peace, Joey. Like people that are paradigm shifting the world of jazz. That's what I'm walking into.
Wow.
I'm walking and thinking like, oh, I'm the shit, whatever. And then you come into school and literally in the first hour, you're like, oh, I got work to do. Like I just can't rely on that. So what
Mhm.
happens is, um, because I'm this high school's in Philly and I live in West Philly and this high school is in South Philly. Um, they give away free bus tokens for the school, and you got to get in line and wait for to get your free tokens and whatnot. And I was waiting in line, and uh, this girl was talking about Prince, and
Mhm.
instantly, I was like trying to figure out like how to insert myself into the conversation, and I heard her say something wrong, and I'm one of them people like like the internet like hashtag actually,
Right.
it's like, well, actually,
You're the first reply guy.
right,
Yeah.
exactly. So I'm like, yeah, no, that's a B-side that he did, and that's not on the album. And they're looking at me and annoyed, like, no one asked you, like, who are
Mhm.
you? Like, that's like I'm failing already. And somehow I was just desperate to just keep the conversation going and insert myself. And I caught myself lying. I was like, yeah, well, the reason why I know is this song because we sampled it last night at the studio. And they're like, who sampled it last night? And I'm like, we did. Now here's the thing. In the lunchroom, so there's different cliques, and I'm supposed to be the instrumental jazz dweeb in the basement.
Okay.
Tariq was so there's a hood element in the school, and most of that element are they're artists, and a lot of them were like graffiti artists. And in Tariq's case, I guess his story is that Philadelphia had a massive um, campaign against graffiti. And if
Mhm.
you got caught doing graffiti, then you got like locked up. Instead of going to juvie, it was your job to clean up all the graffiti in the subways or
Right.
whatever. Like you would have to clock in like 30 hours. So Tariq was one of those people. And I guess the person watching him saw like Tariq actually has a talent with art and those sort of things. Like, oh, you would make the walls white, and then I guess as a reward you can paint respectable art. So Philadelphia has one of the most murals in all of
I see.
Philadelphia. So I mean, we have like 4,000 murals all over the city.
Mhm.
So Tariq was part of those like, no to graffiti and yes to murals, that
Right.
sort of thing. And his person sort of saw that you have a talent and you should go to this school. So that's how Tariq came to our school. So Tariq would sit with the cool kids, and he had an insane gift for playing the dozens, but he just wouldn't be like, your mom's so fat when she get on the scale of waist to feet continue. He would rhyme that shit.
Whoa. Okay.
So just the whole lunch table thing and your Nikes got flaps in the holes and all like, oh my God, that's it. Right. And I was just watching from afar, like, damn, this is a cool. Like I'm sitting with the dweebs and whatnot, and I'm just looking over there, like, damn, I wish I was over there with the cool kids and everything. So I knew he had the ability to rhyme off the top of his head in real time, which is something I never saw before. And as I'm lying my ass off to those girls in the token line, I was like, yeah, I got a group with him. And so I didn't think of it. You know what I mean? I thought like they were like 3 of them didn't believe me, and,
Right.
I was like, whatever." Like, I don't know what it was, but I went to class. I went to orchestra practice in the basement, and maybe 25 minutes into it, something told me, like, "You better cover your lie." Now, here's the thing. his lunch period is now, even though I'm in orchestra class, his lunch period is now, and we're in a 7-story building. So basically, like, I have to like fly the bumblebee.
Right.
Excuse me. Third floor. And I finally get to the rooftop. And it was so simple. Like, if any join, eh, we're a group. And he just with this is the casual nonchalance. It was just like, okay,
Wow.
who's that guy? Like, basically, that's kind of how it happened.
Wow.
And so I will say that the first bonding was me being allowed to leave the dweeb section
Mm.
and go to the cool kids because if you remember, in '85 of the Cosby Show, like season 2,
Mhm.
there's the episode where Theo and Denise, their car crashes and Stevie Wonder hits them.
Yeah.
And to avoid a lawsuit, Stevie Wonder just
Just
like,
has him to the studio.
yeah, just take, yeah, let
Just come
me,
hang
let me
out.
use my Stevie Wonderness and yeah, that sort of thing. And of course, they come to the studio.
Mhm.
And for a lot of us in hip hop culture, this is the first time that we're seeing what a sampler does.
Right.
Right. And so, we're seeing like Theo say, jamming on,
Jamming on the
right,
one.
jamming on the one, right. So you're seeing how a sampler works on this Cosby Show episode, and it's literally just sparking bing across everyone's brains like, oh my God, like, what was that machine Stevie Wonder had? Casio, the toy, the company makes these little toy keyboards.
Mhm.
Of course, they have a device called the SK1, which has a 3-second sampler option in this thing. So,
Right.
of course, for Christmas, everyone's like, I want a sampler. I want a Casio SK1. So, of course, I got one for Christmas.
Mhm.
And, of course, I'm taking that joint to school. And what winds up happening is, first when you get it, you just do things like you curse words like shit, shit, fuck, pussy, like you just do dumb shit. And then I realized like, can I do music to this thing? So I'm like running my drum set, press record and play a breakbeat real quick. And I was like, yo,
You can loop it.
this is how I could do. Right. So then suddenly I found out my way of entering that circle. Instead of them just like hitting the right. It's 1988. So the Marley Marl era of sampling is coming into play where it's just a drum beat and whatever. And it's 88. So top billing is having a massive
Right.
effect. Everyone breaks out doing the WAP and that sort of thing.
Mhm.
So, I mean, it wasn't cliche like someone had a boom box and all of a sudden we're like dancing, but I knew I could be that person. And that's what's going to make me cool. So I would run downstairs, back to the basement, and just do like kick, snare. Okay, sit down. And I was like, guys, look, boo, 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 do, 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 do. And they were like, yo, you could. And literally, I became like the first bespoke Michelin star waiter, where
Mm.
now Tariq's like, now I don't want to do top billing. Go do Kick the Ball by Crown Rulers. And I'm like, ah, all right, give me 5 minutes. Run down the basement and play God Made Me Funky by the Headhunters. And then run back upstairs. And then he'd be like, nah, I want to do like Suicide by Busy Bee. So basically, I became that person
Right.
to him. So we were basically a group in name only.
Mhm. What was the name originally?
So the deal is about a year later in 1989, I'm 2 years older than Tariq.
Mhm.
So I had graduated high school and, the, the black father thing, like, well, you either going to get a job or you're going to go to college and da
Mhm.
da da. So the plan was always for me to go to either Curtis Institute, which I don't know if you saw like Kate Blanchett and Tar,
No, I
but
haven't
like,
seen it.
yeah, it's the highest level of classical music you can go to. And in my father's world respectability,
Right.
like, you learn classical composition and then maybe one day you'll play with the Boston Pops and you could make $300,000 and make something of yourself. Like that's his version of
Mhm.
like success. And I'm like, wait, why can't I be the guy that, like sells out Madison Square Garden? Like, why I gotta play? But for him, it was just like with what hip hop was happening,
Right.
he just saw it as, yeah, I don't like that stuff. Like we had a real
Of
divide
course.
in our music opinion. Whereas like I grew up in a household with 3,000 records.
Mhm.
So 88, 89 is where like I'm hearing all the breakbeat stuff. I'm like, wait, I know that from some. Oh, dad has that. So I'm like putting two together that
Mhm.
like, oh, all these funk records in my dad's collection is now in my music. And maybe that's what I should do. But he was like, no, you're going to go to college and you're going to go to Juilliard or you're going to go to Curtis.
Mhm.
And that's final. So I had to get a job selling insurance
Hmm.
so that I could pay for college. So I was going to take like a year on a break. What do you call it? A gap year.
Right.
And I worked at an insurance company. And, at some point I was just like, yo, like, let me save this money to go to the studio and
Mhm.
see what we can do. But we didn't get far with it because like, only had like enough for like 3 hours. And, my arrangements and songwriting was too expansive just to get it all done in 3 hours.
Right.
So at the most I could just, for like $400, we just loop one beat and Tariq would freestyle and not know what a song structure was or none of that stuff. So pretty much, you know, I will say that in the beginning, he named us Radioactivity.
Okay.
Um, and he was T Metaphor.
T
So
metaphor.
Tariq was big on like what I call all the iambic pentameter MCs.
Mhm.
Uh
The
right, right. So Cool G Rap,
Kane.
Kane, and
Yeah.
all that. Yo, man, like the days of like playing a song through the radio, like, yo, man, listen to this. And he's
Mhm.
playing me like Wrath of Kane, and I thought NWA was whack because
Mm.
like they got Jerry Curls. I ain't listening to them. And he's like, no, man. Like, and he finally got me in like via the DOC.
Right.
Like, listen to this. And so like we're just trading off that sort of thing.
What are you more into at that time?
Well, the thing was is that I in well actually terms, when Tariq is like, yo, play kick the ball real quick. And I'm like, that's called God Made Me Funky by the Headhunters,
Right.
a group produced by Herbie Hancock, and da-da-da. And then they toss you like in the garbage
Get
can,
outta
like,
here.
right.
Nerd.
Right. That's the person I was. So, I grew up in a house with 3 different record collectors. So my dad was more of a vocal person. He was into like Johnny Mathis and Nat King Cole was his idol. He sang like Nat King Cole. So he liked vocal stuff.
Mhm.
My mom was more eclectic. So she would sort of be like us, crate digging. She judged music on what the album cover looked like. So
Mm.
if an artist like Marty Clairwig, who did like Bitches Brew and Santana's album cover, like those really weird 70s.
Psychedelic looking, yeah.
Right. So if it looked like that,
She was in.
she purchased it. And then my sister is slightly older, fitting in with her girlfriends and whatnot, like in high school, she has to get into what they're into. And she's at like these schools in which like it's racially mixed and whatnot. So, she's coming home with the Bohemian Rhapsody 45 and David Bowie and what is Physical Graffiti by Led Zeppelin and
Mm.
all that stuff. So, and the thing is that I also the most important part of my music education journey isn't that like I'm listening to this stuff as a 5-year-old, like, yes, one day I'll utilize all this. No, I'm living in a don't touch my stereo or else.
Hmm.
And they're really big on the or else part. Like, very strict household, very Joe Jackson as corporal punishment
Yeah.
type of
Yeah.
like that
No.
sort of thing. So I'm kind of listening to this music against my will.
Mm.
But then, as with anything, it becomes like Stockholm syndrome. It's like
Fall in love, yeah.
I hate Marvin Gaye. But now it's like that's all you get to like I never get to hear the records I want to listen to
Mhm.
because I gotta listen to what they want to listen to. So that's how I'm getting my music education. And on top of that, um, the way that my dad would binge shop records, he every twice a month he would have to go to the local mom and pop store to buy like maybe $200 worth of albums and 45s. And he's literally going the guy like, all right, what's new this week? And the guy hands him like a Cashbox, Billboard chart. Okay, give me that. And next thing you know, we got like 70 45s. And then, all right, what record should I get? You know, my dad's old, so the young guy in the record store is like, oh, you need this, that, this, that, this. Oh, this is good. Like whatever the Gene Brown of that's what this guy is to my dad.
Mm-hmm.
And then we would take those records to my dad's band, right? And my dad's band would look through it, rummage it. Okay, well, we want this, that, this, that, this, that, this, that, and the other. Ah, this song's whack. Nope, nope. So whatever the band thought was horrible or whack, I got to inherit.
Got you.
So I'm probably the only human being whose musical education starts with flop singles and the bad songs. So like, the stylistics, we're gonna take You Make Me Feel Brand New, but I'm like, what about Shame and Scandal in the Family? They're like, what the hell is that? Or Van McCoy's like, they'll take the hustle, but not like change with the times. Like, so whatever the flop song was, that became part of my everyday diet because like, oh, I own these records. These are my records. So that's the type of knowledge I had of music. And so, once we became, okay, so we started as Radioactivity, and Tariq was T Metaphor, and I was A Sample because, I used to carry that SK1 around. That lasted for like maybe a good 6 months.
What happened was season 4, fantastic like Secret Wars. Questlove with the stories, got him leaning for. It's what the hardcore fiending for. And now I'm covering you the scene before. We break it down, you can reabsorb. Bring it around like a meteor. We get it moving like a stevedore. Beat the podcast leaderboards. A straight tens, it's a perfect score. We're not your chips out your circuit board. We here to help with what you're searching for. To inspire what you're working toward. A little closer than you were before. Updated software version for such and such. And furthermore, it's like this.